Good evening and welcome to BossFM Town Hall. I am Charles
I
Tharpe.
can't I can't hear anything. Let me leave and come back. Sorry.
I am Charles Tharpe, and me and Kenya Miller will be your host tonight. Kenya's going over a couple technical things. She'll be right back, but I'm just going to go over a few things that we aim to do here with Town Hall. So, our overall aim with this Town Hall is to tell the ones how to increase voter turnout and the overall participation in the election, as well as keep the public informed on the latest updates on the candidates and provide tips on the voting process. And if you have questions, feel free to either tag us on Twitter at BossFM Digital or at Black News Alert, or use the hashtag BossFM Town Hall.
Yes, hey everybody. As Charles may have already told you, I am one of the co-hosts, Kenya Miller. I am so sorry about that short technical difficulty I had, but yes, what he said. But without further ado, let's get started. So, okay, on Friday, Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away at 87 years old, but she was surrounded by her family. Um, okay, yes, on you, Charles, my bad.
Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg served 27 years for the Supreme Court, making her one of the most significant members. She was a staple in the 70s for fighting women's rights, and in the 80s, she rose as a cultural, feminist, and legal icon for our country. Her passing is unfortunate, but it's actually going to shake things up within our Supreme Court system. After this year's election, it will be time for the Supreme Court's hearing of the Affordable Care Act, better known as Obamacare. Rest peacefully, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Yes, rest in peace for starters. Secondly, this, like you said, things are about to be shaken up because, ever since Trump came into office, he's been trying to repeal that Affordable Care Act. And I mean, it's needed. It's just I think the healthcare system in America is like terribly, terribly flawed.
No, for sure. And it helps out millions of people. I think that healthcare, oddly enough, is one of the most expensive things here when all the things that are unhealthy are extremely cheap. Um,
Right.
doesn't add up. So I definitely want people to be wary about that when
Hmm.
voting, because that is super major, super major. Think about your health, think about how much you're paying for healthcare, things of that nature. And if that's something you don't support, if you don't like the taxes being taken out for the Affordable Care Act, that's your prerogative. I
Hmm.
personally care about seeing the doctor cheaply because my well-being is important. So just vote how you feel, but keep that in mind that that is on the panel.
Yes, definitely. And with Justice Ginsburg gone, the Republicans have a chance to, let's say, put their foot down with a controlling vote, unlike in 2012 when Ginsburg had the authority. President Donald Trump has now narrowed his list of nominees to take her seat down to five people. And he says that he will make the announcement of his final decision later on this week. A few hours after the passing of Justice Ginsburg, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell vowed that a Trump nominee will receive a vote on the floor of the United States Senate.
So that was another part that I wanted to talk about. So this election is super important because, not to sound rude or cruel or anything, but a lot of the Supreme Court nominees, a lot of the House of Representative seats, Senate seats, a lot of these people are really old. So the next president you vote in, whether it's Republican or Democratic, they will be choosing these seats. And
Right.
those seats last for years, sometimes decades. Like in RBG's case, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she was in office for years, 30 plus years. So, well, 27, but she's been doing stuff in the legislation for over 30 years. So you
Hmm.
have to consider those things when voting. That's why it's super important that you all get out because your vote will determine your future
Right.
in, in the easiest statement possible. The
Right.
three nominees are Judge Amy Coney Barrett from the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit, Judge Barbara Lagoa of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit, and Judge Allison Jones Rushing of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 4th Circuit. All are known to be favorites of the social conservatives. The other two have not been named yet. President Trump said it best. He said, losing an election has the consequences. That means that the other side gets to pick Supreme Court justices, judges. It's a big deal. And I agree.
Yeah, I agree too. I just think he just has this idea that if the Dems are like in control of anything, that the country is gonna like perish, and we're kind of already in shambles anyway. But
If you step outside, you can see the result of voting or not voting or however you sway.
mm,
It's in turmoil. But let's get into the actual policies. Let's talk about these policies.
yeah. So today we're going to give you guys some details on the 2020 presidential candidates and their policies. As we all are aware, like we've already been saying, the two presidential candidates running for the White House are former Vice President of the United States, Joe Biden, and our current president, Donald Trump. So, first, let's start with Joe Biden and give you all a feel of the Biden campaign, as well as what are some credible sources you can turn to. Joe Biden was the former vice president of the United States, like I already said, and he started his political career as a Democratic councilman of the Newcastle County Council from 1970 to 1972. Following that, he became the Senator of Delaware in 1973, and he remained in office until 2009 when he became the Vice President of the United States.
And so let's get into some of his plans on if he becomes president. So, to control the ongoing pandemic our nation faces, Biden plans to mandate wearing masks. Many researchers have continuously, said that wearing masks does in fact help put a curve in the coronavirus statistics. The CDC recommends that everyone wears a mask when they cannot social distance, as masks work as a simple barrier to help prevent respiratory droplets from traveling into the air. And this is the easiest way to transmit the virus. Biden's stance is contrary to President Trump's, as Trump has yet to enforce a mask mandate and often seen without a mask. In fact, I think I saw him once with a mask, and that was when the pandemic first started. Um, Actually, I
He
don't.
doesn't really
Yeah.
he doesn't really wear his mask, and then like with his rallies lately, like everybody has been like criticizing because at his rallies people are literally like bunched together and everything, and nobody is wearing masks really, like
Mhm.
you
And he's
know
also going against the grain by having these rallies. I remember his first proposed rally in Oklahoma. And it was supposed to be Juneteenth, which he caught a lot of flack for, so he moved it.
hmm
In like the height of our quarantine, and he had a 10,000 people rally at a stadium with no mask.
and you think that um people would be more cautious of that because a lot of his voters are, people that are in the age group that are more um liable to actually catch the disease. But he can't really tell people. Like, I mean, he can tell us what to do, but he just isn't telling us what to do.
Exactly. And then you have a lot of people who believe that coronavirus is a myth. Um, and so it's all about how you just have to pay attention to facts. And that's why we're going to tell
Mhm.
you all about fact checking and knowing what's credible and what's not credible, because there's a lot of ways to be manipulated in the media. But we'll get to that in the future. We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah. So, some more stuff about Joe Biden. He also plans to increase drive-through testing, and this is something that is beneficial to people in communities who didn't have sites nearby or places where the lines were just like unbearably long and deterred people. Biden has shared that he believes in widespread testing to help out the nation to help our nation face the pandemic. Biden thinks that we should also follow the directions and advice of Dr. Anthony Fauci, director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, and asks that he continues his membership with the White House Coronavirus Task Force. On top of all of this, he plans to guarantee paid leave for anyone with the coronavirus or someone who has to take off work to care for someone with the coronavirus.
Um, and I like that because I actually witnessed firsthand someone
Mhm.
willing to expose someone to coronavirus because they couldn't take off work. Um, I had a coworker. I had a coworker who I'm not gonna put her on blast or anything, but she was sick. She had a sore throat. She had a fever, and she came to work, and of course, I had to report it because that's just a danger to everyone.
Right.
Um, but I asked her, I said, why would you come to work? Like when they said, like if you're sick, stay home. Like no one's gonna be penalized for calling in sick in a time like this.
Mhm.
The truth was that she couldn't afford to take that many days off because if you have symptoms,
Mm.
you have to do a mandatory 14-day quarantine. And
Yeah.
the reality is a lot of Americans are living check to check. And if you take 14 days off, that's going an entire pay period without getting paid. So,
That's my grandmother. Literally, she has been like so adamant about like following the guidelines and wearing your mask and washing hands, hand sanitizer, all of that because her job is on the same thing. Literally, like if someone has a cough, you got to sit out 2 weeks. And my grandmother's like, I cannot afford to do that. Like we got stuff to do, honey. We cannot. It's a no for me. It's a no
and
for the whole house.
the house. And it's sad that we as citizens have to fear, we have to put our work life over our personal lives and
Mhm.
other people's personal lives because we can't afford a lifestyle where we could take 2 weeks off. That I feel like that says more about the state of our country than anything.
Yeah,
So I definitely think we should be on top of these things, and that's something to consider. If you can
definitely.
afford to take 2 weeks off, maybe you should be going for the person who's willing to pay you if you do get sick. But if you also believe that coronavirus is a myth, despite what the CDC and researchers are saying, you can do that as well.
Right.
Let's talk down to Biden and his police reform. He said some things that raised questions to me. So his main belief on police reform right now is that he doesn't support the idea of actually defunding the police. Instead, he wants to add an additional $300 million for the funds that help community-oriented police services. So that is going to include public schools, summer programs, substance abuse centers, mental health treatment centers. And even though these are separate issues, adding more funding, adding more funding to the police force would definitely still deter away from the whole defund the police matter. Um, He did say that he's going to implement extra training for incoming officers. But in my opinion, I do believe you should fund more. So a lot of people don't understand what defund the police means.
Mm-hmm.
It means just take away money from the police force or just get rid of the police force altogether.
Right.
Um, but in reality, what defund the police means is take away so much money that we're putting into the police force and allocate it to other places.
Mm-hmm.
You could prevent violence. So giving those schools more money so kids can have after school programs, giving
Right.
those mental health and social abuse, substance abuse places more funding so they can help those who need the help. Because that's where the
Mm-hmm.
crime is coming from. It's coming from the lack of funds. Um,
Right.
and I think that New York is giving like over $1 billion to the police force. Chicago gives close to 500 million to the police force. And these are places with heightened violence. So where's the money
Right.
going? You're adding all these cops.
Yeah, and like I'm not saying that I am a Trump supporter because, I'm not gonna speak on all of that. But like when all of the political unrest was like really heightened in America, like when people were like really protesting and looting and rioting and stuff, um Trump did propose an executive order on policing that kind of, addressed some of the things as far as like, he wasn't defunding the police either, but some of his plans were to reallocate the funds into like, one thing I remember specifically was like having actual trained professionals deal with drug addicted people or like people with mental health issues and stuff like that. That was blocked by the Dems because they felt like the some of the stuff in the plan wasn't immediately attacking social injustice and everything, but I still felt like, that would have been a good idea.
It's a great
You know,
alternative.
yeah. It.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, oh, sorry. I was gonna say the same thing. I was gonna say that like having actual medical professionals deal with people sometimes is your best bet because you think about prison. A lot of people who are in prison need mental health,
Hmm.
and they'll finish their sentencing, but nothing was solved because the problem wasn't the crime; it was what was going on mentally. So
Hmm.
that's why we need more funding. We
Yeah.
have a huge homeless population in America. Uh, we got a huge substance abuse in America, the opioid crisis. So these
Hmm.
are things that more funds should be going to. So when Biden said that he wasn't for defunding the police, but he did want to give additional funding, I definitely like that. But I don't think $300 million is enough for the rest of this country. Yeah,
Yeah.
that New York alone is spending close to $1 billion on the police force. 300 million for this entire country. It's not gonna cut it, buddy. Sorry.
Right. But as far as economic policy goes in the Biden campaign, the former vice president is really adamant about raising the minimum wage to $15 per hour and to repeal tax cuts that went into play by the Trump administration. He also plans to make community college free. He wants to close the gap in education funding between white and non-white communities, which right now, according to his campaign, sits at $23 billion. That's a lot. And he says he will do this by tripling the federal Title I funding for low income area schools. On immigration, Biden actually does not support the idea of decriminalizing crossing the border. Excuse me. In his words, he thinks people should get in line. And however, if they're coming from a complicated lifestyle and seeking peace or refuge, then they should absolutely be given a chance. He believes that undocumented immigrants with no criminal records are the least of America's concerns when it comes to deportations, but he has called for Congress to grant citizenship for immigrants that came to the United States as children.
Yeah, and I want to go back to your first part where you talked about how Biden wanted to raise minimum wage and
Hmm.
the education gap, because that's when I get critical of Biden, because we tend to forget that he was just the vice president for 8 years. Um,
Hmm.
and that a lot of these things were going on while he was in office. So you also have to question. You have to question both sides. Trump does some sketchy stuff, but then you got to question Biden. And I think that's the biggest dilemma for voters nowadays. Um,
Yeah.
like, we're doomed if we do, we're doomed if we don't. But I think that what people have to talk about is, with politics, you're never going to get everything that you want. You never
Right.
will. You never will.
Right.
I think that it's just best for us to figure out what we want out of a person, like whether this person is
Hmm.
the best option or this person. That's what politics is. You're never going to have the perfect candidate. But I
That's
am
true.
critical of Biden sometimes.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, I it's just that, it's like we have these two options right now, and
And
we
you
have to just we gotta go with the best one at this point. I'm not saying
exactly.
that they're just like totally the same, and I'm not saying that they're totally opposite, but we just gotta think smarter when we're voting.
Tolerate for the next 4 years. Think about these
Right.
past 4 years, and what and do you think things can change in the next 4 years? So everybody should be voting. Nobody should be at home like my vote doesn't matter. Your vote matters.
It does,
So
definitely.
since we're all voting, let's all do research. And with that, we're going to talk about sources. Um,
Hmm.
Now, the big names like CNN, Fox, ABC, NBC are great to get information from, since they are major news stations that are always running news on TV and on their social media, as well as the company sites. But also, you should know that these companies have biases. For example, CNN leans left and Fox leans right. It's not
Hmm.
to discredit them, but the facts are facts.
Yep, I totally agree. I just personally, I choose CNN and that's not just because of who I plan on voting for or because of like what party they lean towards or anything, but CNN is just my favorite when it comes to like the real real facts, true in real time facts. I'm sorry, when it comes to the facts about the presidential election and everything. But go ahead.
No,
Are you about to say something? Okay. But if you're more of an internet surfer or an article reader, you can also use free outlets like NPR, Pew Research Center, the Huffington Post, USA Today, and the New York Post. Politico is also a great site to turn to for more information on the candidates. It will give you a breakdown of their policies and allow you to easily see their major platform points. And that's another reason why I said I like CNN too, because CNN will literally put like Biden and Trump next to each other, and then you can view their profiles. You can see the numbers, how much they spent on their campaign. You can literally see everything, like right and left.
mhm.
Um, but for a subscription fee, you can get news from the New York Times, the Los Angeles Times, Chicago Tribune, and the Wall Street Journal. And of course, I have to say this, you can always turn to us here at Boss FM and Black News Alert for some more information and updates on the 2020 presidential election as well.
Yeah, we'll never turn you wrong. So
Right.
definitely, you should be tuning in to us first. Um, yeah, I definitely agree with you, Ken. It's something that we all need to be super aware of. I don't know if you've seen the new documentary on Netflix, The Social Dilemma.
Mm-mm.
It is so like eye opening. It's kind of scary to an extent. So it was just basically talking about how we now spend way too much time on our phones, and
Right.
do uh, the content we see is based on our beliefs, but not all
Mm-hmm.
everything that we believe is true. So it was saying how like somebody who's watching these people do rants. So like you're on YouTube. It was talking about the YouTube rabbit hole. You're on YouTube. You're watching this one guy talk about, for instance, the coronavirus isn't real. Instead of YouTube being ethical and giving you a video like by the CDC on the next video, no, they're going to give you the next conspiracy theories, and then the
Oh,
next, and then the next conspiracy theories. So that's like you have days and days and days of people telling you, "Oh, the coronavirus isn't real. This is why it's not real. You should believe
hmm
it." And eventually, it's gonna change the way you think. It's
right.
the same with presidential candidates. Like, if you're not getting real advice, if you're not getting real political views or facts, you're just gonna end up with a lot of different lies. So,
Yeah.
very weary of the things you're reading and seeing.
Yes. Yes. You got to make sure you're reading credible sources and reliable sources because the way the internet is these days, you will get steered in a completely opposite direction than you need to be.
Exactly. Now, we just talked about Biden. Now we're gonna get
hmm
into our president, number 45. So since 2016, President Trump has been adamant on ending our reliance on China, and he's been trying to renegotiate past trade deals that he says were unfair to the U.S. For instance, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. According to the Council of Foreign Policy Relations, the Trans Pacific Partnership was the centerpiece to President Obama's strategic pivot to Asia. Before President Trump withdrew the United States in 2017, the TPP, the Trans Pacific Partnership, was set to become the world's largest free trade deal, covering 40% of the global economy. For its supporters, such a deal will have expanded U.S. trade and investment abroad, spurred economic growth, lowered consumer prices, and created new jobs, while also advancing U.S. strategic interests in the Asian Pacific region. But as detractors, including Trump, saw the deal as likely to accelerate U.S.'s decline in manufacturing, lowering wages, and increase inequality. This ongoing war has caused a raise in border taxes that's close to $500 billion of annual trade.
You know, and like I said, I don't want to be the one that is just like, I don't want to just like show my, how do I say it? I don't
You
want it to seem like I'm being biased. I'm not trying to be biased towards anybody, I swear, but it just, from the sounds of that, it just sounds like, and from other things too, like things that were already in place, like that were gonna possibly benefit the country when Trump was elected, it's like his administration is kind of just trying to like, go back on it or something. Like they just don't want Obama to have any type of credit for anything good.
definitely, it definitely seems very anti-Obama. I feel
Yeah.
like he came in and was just like, "Oh, Obama did that. That's over with. Obama did that. That's over with." So that was a little Billy Rock. He definitely ended a lot of things, and that's why we're going to talk about his executive orders.
Yeah. So in 2020 alone, Trump has enforced 46 executive orders, including fighting the spread of COVID-19 by providing assistance to renters and homeowners, preventing online censorship, and extend supplemental employment benefits, defer FICA payroll taxes, and extend a moratorium on evictions and foreclosures. Um, he is also striving to terminate the Affordable Care Act. He declared the opioid crisis a national emergency in 2017 and offered $1.8 billion in federal funding to states for prevention, treatment, and recovery measures. Trump has rolled back hundreds of environmental protections, including limits on carbon dioxide emissions from power plants and vehicles. He recently just approved oil and gas drilling in Alaska's Arctic National Wildfire Refuge.
Very, very typical is what I'll say.
That
Um,
sounds risky.
very like if the Alaska Arctic National Wildfire Refuge is saying don't do oil or gas drilling, we already are dealing with. Earlier, we talked about on Boss FM, which you all should be watching Monday through Friday. Um, we talked about how like the building in Manhattan put up that we have like 7 years to reverse uh, the carbon emissions that we are doing in America.
Hmm.
And it's going to take like what 45%? You said.
It was we have to reduce it by 45% to even like how is it? How was it? Dang, it was we have to reduce it by 45% to basically be at a 50% chance of saving our, our climate.
Our climate. And like they said, like the wildfires that are happening on the West Coast, the floods that are happening in the South, the hurricanes that are happening constantly. This crazy weather is not random. We're actually witnessing climate change in full time, real time.
And I just want to add because like I'm in Georgia. My birthday was a weekend like 2 weeks ago, and it was hot for my birthday. We got up the a couple of mornings ago, and it seemed like Summer just packed her stuff up and just went on and didn't tell nobody anything because it was so cold. Like it it was like we didn't even really transition into fall weather. It's like we just woke up one morning and fall was here.
And that brings me. A lot of people forget. 2 weeks ago, it snowed in Denver. It snowed in September.
Oh yeah.
It snowed. And I think about how like that same day it snowed in Denver, it was like 50 degrees here in Chicago. 50 degrees at the beginning of September has never happened. Now, don't get me wrong, Chicago's cold. It's not at the beginning of September. That has never happened. And I think that with Trump, his biggest thing, it's very like I feel like it's very he's almost touching the corner like the line of a conspiracy theorist. He doesn't
Oh,
really pay attention to like climate change, to coronavirus.
he doesn't like to pay attention to actual science. It's like he doesn't believe in science.
Exactly. And I think that it's reflecting on us. Uh,
Yeah.
definitely reflecting on us, and we have to be cognizant of those things. We have to be cognizant of it because I even think about the opioid crisis and how that is being treated in America. I think it's a little racial though because
Oh,
it's getting treated as a crisis, but the war on drugs.
I know. I knew you was gonna go there.
So I don't know. That's just me. That's just me. The war on drugs was a crack, but that was because it was dealing with poor people. But this
I know.
opioid, the little rich kids. I don't know, but we gonna change it up. We gonna go to the next subject. We gonna go to the next
It's
subject.
America. It's America.
Exactly. So recently, President Trump has been under fire more than ever because Bob Woodward novel Rage. As some of you all may know, Bob Woodward is an American investigative journalist known mostly for reporting the Watergate scandal involving Richard Nixon. He has written 19 books, 13 of which have been bestsellers. His most recent book, Rage, he discusses the Trump presidency and his handling of the coronavirus pandemic.
I gotta read that book, honey, because I mean, I have to see what he has to say. It derived from a conversation he had with Trump in March of 2016. Woodward said a lot of angst and rage and distress was present in the Republican Party, to which Trump replied that I bring the rage out. I always have. I don't know if it's an asset or a liability, but whatever it is, I do. I also bring great unity out ultimately. I've had many occasions like this where people have hated me more than any human being they've ever met. And after it's all over, they end up being my friend. And I see that happening here. Ray's focuses mostly on Trump's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, strained relationship with military brass and high level officials, and handling of the racial unrest and relationships um, with leaders of Russia and North Korea.
And yeah, I wanted to, talk to you about that. I wanted to actually pick your brain about it because, like, I'm not saying that racism disappeared
Hmm.
during the Obama administration, but it definitely was in hiding. I think Trump definitely offset and definitely the Trump administration, not Trump solely. He's not solely
Hmm.
responsible. The Trump administration, when they got in office, I feel like race relations in America, like it's so much tension right now. It's so much
Very.
tension right now, and I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm young. Like I've never seen it this tense. I never got to witness it. I know our ancestors did. I know my parents did.
Hmm.
My parents did. But seeing it in my generation, it's like, wow. Like, do you feel like race relations have changed?
Um, I definitely agree that they have been heightened this year specifically, because I'm not saying that police brutality wasn't like always a problem, because it's clearly always been a problem in America. Like police brutality has never not been a problem in America. But because like you said, like we're older now, so it's like we're actually more aware and we are more understanding of what's going on. I think that the race problems definitely have been heightened this year specifically, and like you said, I don't want to blame it on just Trump, but his administration is geared off of a lot of powerful people being on his side. So I just think that you know like you keep saying, like when it's time for us to vote, we have to just
We gotta,
be mindful.
yeah. And I just keep thinking back to it. Like I think about his 2016 campaign, and there were clips of people fighting
Yes.
at his events, and like it wasn't peaceful. They were like pushing and hitting, and there's clips of him literally saying, "Do that."
Yes, like his 2016 campaign, like it really felt like a Simpsons episode. Like I really was like scared. I was, oh, 2016, this was like my kind of like going into my junior year of college, but like, it just felt like I was like living in a cartoon or something. Like,
Yes,
and
literally.
then this is also another thing. I think we may have pointed this out like in one of our morning broadcasts. Um, like I was saying, like his campaigns are geared off of fear. Like some of my friends have been getting like text messages from the Republican Party saying like, "Oh, are you afraid of like rioting, looting, and this and that? Well, this is what will happen in Biden's America." And it's just like this is what's happening in Trump's America right now. Like,
I think we've moved away from the truth. Like I think it's like a Simpsons episode, like you said. Like everyone's just voting based on what they feel like will happen. Nobody
right,
voting on this is what actually did happen. Like if you're gonna vote one way, vote based on the facts. Vote based on
right,
what happened these last 4 years. And then if you want to vote for Trump, vote based on what happened in the 8 years that you saw Biden. Not saying
right.
it's changed within 4 years, but there are with both candidates. This is a unique nomination because there are facts for both candidates. There is
Right.
proof for both candidates. You can see how America was, or what you didn't like back then versus what you like
Mhm.
now, or what you don't like now, what you like back then. It's no need to text people like, oh, like if you don't like rioting, looting. Nobody was rioting and nobody was looting in 2018. I mean 2008. Like nobody
Right.
was looting in 2010. Come on now, like we know what caused the looting. We know what.
Right. And that goes back to what you just asked me. Do I feel like the racial tensions heighten? since, our current president has been in office. And I do. I'm not saying that it was never a problem before.
Facts
And I'm
are,
not, yeah,
and
simple.
so Woodward says Trump is the wrong man for the job. He says that Trump told him that he was playing it down in reference to the pandemic. Trump was told in January that this pandemic could reach the scale of 1918 Spanish flu, which killed 675,000 Americans. Trump told Woodward in July, "Don't worry about it. We'll get to do another book. You'll find out I was right."
Hmm.
The conversation about downplaying the coronavirus and all the other content Woodward's book Rage, which have created headline-grabbing news, but this time it isn't from a highly placed anonymous source like previously. This time, they are comments that President Donald Trump made to Woodward on the record over the course of 18 interviews. So, as an aspiring journalist, I'm definitely reading this book. I have to have it in my hands because I can remember back in January when we had like one case of coronavirus in America,
Hmm.
like two. And then China was like informing us like, okay, if y'all got two cases, it's time to like
Shut it down.
maybe. Then two went to 100, 100 went to 200. Next thing you know, it was came.
Everything was shut down. Next thing you know, everything was shut down, and they were like, "All right, y'all, stay in the house, wear your mask for 2 weeks, and this will all be over with." Well, it's like six, maybe seven. I lost count. It's months later.
It's six
It's
months.
months later. Yeah.
I know for Chicago, we went on quarantine March 15th. It is September 22nd.
That's about when we went on quarantine in Georgia too. Like
So
I literally had I had something to do that weekend, and everything just got shut down. I got kicked off campus. I had to come home. Like it was bad.
it's it's crazy. And literally they told us if we did those things that the CDC mentioned, we would avoid the curve. And you look at other countries that did it. Italy was like the poster child for what coronavirus could do. Remember they had cases all the time. Like everybody thought that was the worst place. We passed Italy in like a week,
Right.
and now Italy they're back out clubbing and whatever. Even though other countries are preparing for a second wave that
Hmm.
covered from the first wave, but I just they told us 200,000 deaths by September, and here we are at 200,000 deaths at September. So I'm
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah. But like when it comes to this book, I want it because I just want to see what Trump has to say because he's kind of good for like he kind of talks in circles sometimes. So I just that he actually got a chance to sit down
Mhm.
and really like be like really interviewed by someone about this. I want to know. Like I'm definitely going to be copying the book.
That's
And this is like really something that makes you take a step back and think because Woodward, who broke the Watergate scandal, excuse me, virtually ending Nixon's presidency in scandal. Um, Woodward is somebody who a lot of people wouldn't speak to without a lawyer president, but Trump agreed to talk with him alone and allows it to be recorded. And in these casual conversations, he seems to go on and on about politics and the country, and seemingly with no filter, as Woodward has recorded 18 interviews, enough to fill a book. So it just makes you question his competency a little bit, doesn't it?
it does, but one thing I've learned about our president, our sweet president, he does not hold his tongue.
Mm-mm.
And honestly, if we are looking at him in the light of a leader, I kind of can respect that because a lot of politicians would feel away, trick their supporters into thinking they feel away, and then they're in office going, they're completely different.
Hmm.
Renege on what they actually said they were going to do. With Trump, you're going to get what he's telling you you're going to get. Like, well, Not in that set, not in that case. But as far as like his opinion goes, you're gonna know exactly how he feels about a situation. And being upfront, it's a good trait to have as a president. Do I agree with what he's saying?
You're right. You
But
don't gotta agree, but he gon'
he's
I
gonna tell you
mean,
how he feels. He's gonna make it very clear too. So yeah, Trump is the first one to question the competency, I'm sorry, the competency of Joe Biden, spreading the idea that he suffers from some sort of dementia, which he has said, and that he is not up to challenge for presidency, nicknaming him Sleepy Joe. Yet we see him happily talking on record, revealing things to this intense investigative journalist. We're not talking about somebody working at CNN in the newsroom. We're talking about Bob Woodward, one of the most influential journalists of all time. And you obviously gave him enough content to write a book. So I have to see that book. I have to. I just pre-ordered it today, actually.
you really? How
Yeah,
much was it?
it was 21,
Oh, that's not bad. That's not bad.
so it wasn't that bad. Yeah. So do you think that he has valid points when he's questioning Biden's competency? Do you think they're both competent leaders? Do you think neither one is? Do you think one is more than the other?
Mm.
Without without too many opinions.
I just, mm, I don't know. Like you said, because like you said, with politicians, with politics, you're not gonna agree with everything that a politician does. So
Mhm.
it's like, and this is going back into like me talking about the executive order on policing that Trump signed earlier this year. I don't know. I don't like agree with everything that he's done during his presidency, but that was actually like one thing that I was like, okay, well, I felt like he was doing something, but like, the Dems blocked it. But
I can
and then
I can see what you're saying.
yeah.
There's and that's why we're here. We're here to provide the facts. Like
Mhm.
we have our shady remarks or our comments, our snarky remarks, whatever. We do want you all to legitimately vote for who you think is best. We're not here
Right.
to ask you all to vote for someone, um, even though it may seem like we like one candidate more than the other. Because I mean, if we're being honest, we do. We're just not gonna like say that's not our position. That's not our
Right.
to tell you to do that. If you like one person's policies, do it. If you like the other person's policies, do it. Um,
Absolutely.
we're just here to bring the facts. So, like things we've seen in the media. Let's talk about summer 2020, which was a summer. This
Mm.
was a summer. The 2020 in general was a year. 2020 in general was chaotic, to say the words.
2020 came in and showed her tail, okay?
She did. And I don't think 2021 will be any less shy. Like a lot of people keep saying, like, get us out this year. From the patterns we're having on December 31st, when that clock strikes 12, nothing's gonna change. That's the chaos. I think it's now we're at a turning point of the country. So
Yeah.
it's you can't have change without a little ruffle. I think
Yeah.
that summer 2020 was needed. I think that seeing this is my personal beliefs. My personal
Mhm.
I believe that for a country to go up in flames or to be boarded up or to actually have fear, it was necessary. It
Yeah.
was necessary. I think that it sparked a domino effect. I don't know how long the domino effect will last.
Mhm.
Now you have a lot of companies acknowledging black people.
Yeah. I just hate that it took us like protesting, and it's like the civil rights movement point two or 2.0. I
Mhm.
hate that we had to like do all of that to even be like, acknowledged in some companies. Like now, all of a sudden, they want to change Aunt Jemima. Now, all of a sudden, they want to like outlaw Confederate flags when we've literally been saying this for so long, you know. But, and some people have even gotten on me because I'm saying like a lot of this stuff, yeah, it's symbolic, but what is it actually doing for our justice system? And
Mhm.
people get on me for saying that, but that's just how I feel. Like I don't think that painting the streets is
No,
what is it gonna do?
it's
I'm sorry.
what policies are going to be put in place, which is why people
Right,
like.
right,
I think that the way both candidates feel about the situation is polarly opposite. One feels that there isn't a situation to be dealt with. One feels like
right.
a couple bad cops, it happens to the best of us, let's move forward. The other one actually acknowledges that there is an issue and
Hmm.
institution, that there is a systematic problem. Systemic. I actually learned that it's not systematic, it's systemic. There's a systemic issue at hand. And that's why it's super important to do your research and to actually go out and find out on your own. Don't, I'm not saying don't listen to your peers. I'm not saying don't listen to
Right,
your family banter, but voting is an individual right. It's your right. It's your privilege to
right.
be able to select your leader. So make sure somebody works for you, not you and your future. You plan if you plan on having kids, a dog, or whatever. Do you want your dog or your child to live? Dog parents are real. Like, do you want your next heir to live in whatever world we're living in now, or just think about that. Think about you.
Right. And speaking of going out and voting, me and Charles are going to tell you guys some, some different ways to vote. So this is our final point. Today is actually National Voter Registration Day. Guys, there is only 42 days left until Election Day, which is November 3rd. And it's been about time, but now it's really time to buckle down and get ready to vote again. So let's just try to be smarter this time around because in 2016, we had people thinking that their votes didn't matter. So if you aren't registered to vote, here's how you can get that situated. Go on, talk to them, Charles. Let them know something.
So, available in 39 states, you can register to vote at vote.gov. You can download the National Voter Registration Form, print it out, fill it out. Be sure to sign it before mailing it in. You all might think it's small, but your signature matters. Make sure it aligns with your ID. I learned that recently that if it doesn't match your ID, it's going to be invalid. As you all know, when you sign for your ID, your signature is on hand. Um,
Mhm.
that is super pertinent. I talked to a specialist at he works for the ballot, and they're going to be doing signature approving when you do mail-in voting, which we're about to get into next. With a national pandemic occurring, there are new alternative ways to voting, such as mail-in and absentee voting. Request your mail-in ballot with a mail ballot application. Fill out the application completely. Submit a request to your local election office. You should request your ballot as far in advance of election as possible. So if you can do it today or tonight, go and do it tonight or tomorrow morning. The deadline to request a ballot is Friday, October 30th. And if you all have noticed the times that we're in, that's going to be here by tomorrow. Um,
Right.
and when your ballot arrives, read it carefully and follow the instructions to complete it and return it. Again, guys, it's super important that that signature is as close to your ID as possible because they do have somebody there that's verifying both.
Yes, and if you don't vote that way, the next thing you can do is also register to vote in person. I know that may be a challenge for some areas because of COVID, but if not, you can visit a local Department of Motor Vehicles, a Armed Forces Recruitment Center, or state and county public assistance offices. For more information on registering to vote, please visit www.usa.gov/register to vote. This is so important. So important, guys. I know we have been shoving those words down you guys' throat this whole broadcast, but you just don't understand. It's so important. It's
It's
so
super
important. It's
essential.
pertinent.
That's the
Like,
year essential. What's essential? What's not essential?
right.
Uh, so like, and especially now is the time. Election day is 42 days away. In that 42 days, in the next 15 days, I'm gonna need you all to find out your polling place,
Hmm.
know where that's at. I need you to figure out if you're going to do online voting or if you're going to go into the polling place. I need you to make sure you're registered. Actually, it's National Registration Day today. So if you're not registered, you need to handle that. You need to handle that. You could do it online. You could do it on your phone. So while you're watching us, you could leave us in your ear and go register to vote right now. Or when this is over with, make sure you do, especially if you're black or brown, because that's gonna bring us to our next topic.
Hmm.
And it's super essential because you all need to be aware of the issues that black and brown communities face with voting. It's called voter suppression, and it plagues the black and brown community, the elderly community, students, people with disabilities. These are things that are actually affecting our futures because
Hmm.
of voter suppression. So I need everybody to be on top of it. Can tell us some more about voter suppression?
No problem. So, voting suppression is the process of using methods of disenfranchisement to prevent people from voting and minimize their power to vote. As as much as America likes to think that they are a progressive country, voting suppression continues to this day. Some of the most common acts of voting suppression include closing or cutting hours at voting places, cutting early voting days and times, restricting felons from voting, putting specific restrictions and laws against the ID forms that are allowed at the polls, and so many other tactics are used to help stop minority groups from groups of people from voting in the elections. And I want to just point out again, like I said earlier, it's actually like kind of bad in Georgia, like really bad. Because I live in a predominantly white county, and when I go to vote, well, I don't want to say white. I'm sorry. Maybe I should say Republican. I don't know.
Say white. I mean, demographics are different demographics.
Yeah. When I go to vote, it's like it's literally in and out for me. Like I can literally walk in the school and then cast my vote and then walk right out. But and for some of my friends that live like closer towards Atlanta in the counties that are predominantly black, they get stuck waiting in line for hours just to vote. Hours, literally.
Saw an article about Atlanta specifically. One of the polling places closed during the primary this in February or March while the line was long because the people felt like they worked their shift and they were gone. And
Hmm.
like even though we're telling people to make sure they know where they're voting, make sure you're there early, make sure you're polling on time, there still will be a conversation because some of these places will still suppress people from voting. Um,
Hmm.
and that's why early voting is a thing. A lot of people didn't know that you could take a day off to vote. You could get extra, not a day off, but you can request hours to vote. So legally, your job has to give you time to vote. A job can't make you work all day on election day.
Right.
And I think that that's pertinent information for a lot of people because there are some people I've heard people say like, "Oh, I'm not gonna be able to vote today because I got to work." And it's like this is not a thing that you could just push off. Like it's
Right.
not a thing like, okay, I'm not gonna grocery shop today. I'm gonna grocery shop tomorrow. You're selecting your leaders for the next 4 years, and it's not just presidential leaders. You're representing House of Representatives. You have local elections on that ballot. You have
Hmm.
Supreme Court elections on that ballot. This is super important.
Right.
So. I just think that even after the passage, the Voting Rights Act in 1965, which helped enforce the 15th Amendment and put restrictions on obstacles that minorities have to go through to make themselves eligible to vote, America is still finding ways to suppress that vote. A vote that really matters, the vote of the people of color, because we're the ones getting affected most by the policies.
Hmm.
We are, whether we like it or not.
Yeah. And a study by the Brennan Center found that almost 16 million voters were purged between 2014 and 2016, and places with a history of racial discrimination had significantly higher purge rates. For example, in Atlanta, Georgia, I
Mhm.
mean, in the South. In 2016, Arkansas purged thousands of voters for felony convictions, which later turned out to be incorrect. Purging voters allows states to keep track of people who may have moved away or died, but states in recent years have taken it to the extreme.
Yeah, and another tactic that is used to suppress voting within minority communities is the vote that many people are going to do this year, and that's voting by mail. This tactic needs to be on the lookout because it's super relevant this year. And
Hmm.
for instance, when they send the mail-in voting packet to give you that option, it's only in English. I was talking to someone. It's not in multiple languages. You actually have to go online, request a special form in your language or whatever language is your first language if you can't read English, and then you receive another one. And I think that that's suppressing the vote already,
Definitely.
because if I can't read this to tell me to go online to get a form that actually is in my language, I'm never going to go online because I can't read it to
Right.
begin with. Now, some families are lucky enough to have children or
Hmm.
members that do read in English, when they
Hmm.
get that slip, but that's voter suppression. And
Yeah, you took the words like right out of my mouth. I was gonna say it's definitely sounds it seems as like they do it on purpose. It's like they know that there are, illegals. I'm sorry, not illegals, immigrants in the country that don't have much of an English education anyway. So it's just like it's real unfair, and
uh,
it's disheartening.
it is, and like, so if you do know anyone who English isn't their first language, or they can speak English, but they probably can't read and write it in English. I think you definitely need to be helping them out. Anything
Hmm.
you all can do, it's super pertinent to vote. We're gonna throw that at you so much that when you done watching this live, you're gonna be like, it's important to vote, y'all.
Right.
It is life or death. It's life or death. It's life or death.
That's how we're gonna play it. But President Trump and the GOP have been vocal about cutting funding and resources for the USPS, the United States Postal Service. Not only does this hinder the USPS's ability to operate an election by mail, but it undermines the public trust in the agency and will discourage people from even attempting to cast their ballots by mail. So here's a clip on what some ballots are looking like that have been circulating on Twitter.
Yeah, so that has so much information on it. Make sure you all are reading carefully. Make sure you all are actually filling in every line. I know with a lot of ballots, um, if you don't circle one answer, the entire thing is invalid. So
Right.
definitely go slow. Don't rush. If you, and the cool part I will say about mail-in voting is that if you don't know a candidate, you can research them right then and there.
Hmm.
When you're at a polling place, I know it's happened to me. This is only my second time voting for president. You get in there, you don't know none of those names, and that's dangerous. You'll just start circling like, okay, this person, and I know a lot of people do that. No, if you're mail-in voting, actually take the time to go online
Hmm.
and figure out which one is best for you. And
That's like a luxury that you have.
yeah, it's a huge luxury.
Hmm.
Just definitely take all these tips and advice. It's I know that it's a pandemic. A lot of us are discouraged. We don't want to be political. We don't want to. We just want to break. We don't want to see bad news. We just want everything to be roses and daisies. And whether we like it or not, we're not going back there anytime soon. So
It seems like this year has just been like all politics, all coronavirus. All politics, all coronavirus.
it's been only thing you heard about is who's rioting, who's protesting. Um, how many people are dying from coronavirus. But that's why you need to stay informed and up to date. That is
Hmm.
as much as we don't want to see bad news. If you're out the blue and you don't know what's going on, that's even worse. That's definitely like that's I feel like that's the worst thing that could be for a person. You shouldn't turn a blind eye to what's happening to your everyday life. So
Right.
the best way to avoid voter suppression is to notice and be aware of the tactics. Stay up to date on your registration status. Know if you are registered. You can check that on vote.gov. You can check that at any second of any moment of the day. Registering to vote is free. It's not like paying for a passport. I'm sorry, I'm mistaken, guys. The register to vote, it's usa.gov/register dash to dash vote. So sorry about that. Um, Spread the word. So, I mean, spread the word. Definitely check out the state requirements. Make sure your friends are registered to vote. The same way you ask them if they watch the reality TV show that Sunday, send them a text. Are you registered to vote? And if they not,
Right.
make them feel bad.
Sorry about that.
When you're on social media and you and your friends kicking it in the comments, you be the weird one to comment. Are y'all registered to vote? In the group chat,
Right.
everybody's spilling tea.
Right. And one of our very own, Cigar Biswas, recommends the documentary Rigged, directed by Michael Casino. It can be found on Vimeo, and it surrounds the modern voter suppression after Barack Obama was elected in 2008. Since 2000, Black and Latinx voters overwhelmingly vote Democrat while white voters vote Republican. 2008 was the first time minority voters were over 25% of the electorate. And it is important to note that the Latinx community is the fastest growing voter demographic right now. The documentary depicts how Republicans saw that they couldn't win the minority vote and that it's the fastest growing demographic. So they started to look for new ways to undermine the turnout.
And that brings up a different topic, and that's what I want to talk about. That's what I wanted to talk about. Um, because I don't think politicians consider all of their demographics. I feel like they feel
Hmm.
like there's two demographics.
Right.
There's rich, there's poor.
Right.
No one talks about there's gonna be a rich white, black, Hispanic
Hmm.
demographic. There's going to be a middle class white, black, Hispanic, Asian, Caribbean, whatever. There's going to be different sectors per class. I don't think it's easy to just talk about one class versus the other class, or
Hmm.
you can't just talk about the black vote or the Latinx vote because we're not all the same people. We don't all walk the same walks of life. If
Right.
you can't say, I heard Donald Trump once said about the black vote that we have nothing to lose. And and you remember Joe Biden saying, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. You remember he said that on TV.
Yes.
So That for me, that was definitely one of the moments where I realized that we definitely need to be heard more. And
Yeah.
maybe Kamala Harris is, going to help shift that dynamic that
Mhm.
just because I'm black, I have this way of thinking, or just because I'm Hispanic, I have this way of thinking, or just because
Mhm.
I'm Asian. That's not a thing. We all walk different walks of life. You have
Right.
black Democrats, you have black Republicans.
And not even that, but there are like, yeah, there are like, certain problems within the different demographics that they could use like to their advantage, when it comes to like their campaigns and everything. I think we already talked about it. Who was it? No, I think this was in one of my broadcasts for the morning show, how Biden actually plans to like he's actually like basically trying to get his votes up with the Latinx community too. So he's actually like really tackling like issues within their community specifically, like I said, using it to his advantage in the election.
Yeah. And I think that that's what we need to be looking for in a candidate. That's what we need to be seeing. We need to see someone actually taking the time to get to know what we want
Right.
specifically. If you are going to say you're trying to raise your Latinx vote, I think you should be doing the groundwork and finding out what the majority of them in different categories, whether it's middle class, low class, working class. um,
Mhm.
you need to be figuring out the needs of all of them in every different type of community. You do, because you can't just box us all into one.
Right, definitely.
I mean, I'm going to make it clear today, when you're referring to the white vote, no one will ever say the white vote is just one vote in America. We know
Mhm.
white Democrats, we know that there's white Republicans, we know that there's white working class, we know that there's white wealthy people. The same it is for everyone. But I don't think when presidential candidates refer to white people, they will never say the white vote. They will never say
Right.
the white vote. But they will say, I have the black vote, or black people should vote for me. What black people should vote for you?
Right.
For you.
But something else that I do like about Biden's campaign is also that he has made it clear that he's not just looking like for him to win the presidency and everything, and for like him to actually become president. If he does, he's not actually just looking to make things better for the people that voted for him. Like, he's very adamant about actually making the country a better place for, of course, his voters and for the people that voted against him. So it seems like he's like, you know about inclusivity. So that's a start. Hopefully some of y'all will take that into consideration, maybe some of y'all won't.
It's just we can only fit so much
Right.
in a town hall session, but we're gonna have more in the future.
Hmm.
And the biggest takeaway that we want from all of you all in these town halls is not to vote for a specific candidate, like we said earlier. The only takeaway from this is to vote. If you all vote, we did our job. We did what we
Right.
needed to do.
No matter who you vote for.
Who you vote for? If you vote, we did what we needed to do. Now I'm gonna put a little extra pressure on you to tell you to research who you vote for.
Definitely.
Don't go in there just vote for anybody because your auntie told you that this person's a girl, or your barber told you that this guy got you wearing a mask and he got you holding your old car bed, and all type of conspiracy theories. I've heard them all. Vote for who you want to vote for. 42 days, y'all. 42. Make sure you out here getting registered, you're strapped, you're ready.
Hmm.
And that wraps up our town hall. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. Join us for our next town hall on October 13th.
Yes, and follow either of our Boss FM or Black News Alert social medias for more up to date information on the election, the next town hall, and all other voter information.
And yeah, so if you have any suggestions, questions, comments, and you would like them to be answered at the next town hall, feel free to either tag us on Twitter at BossFM Digital or at Black, oh, I'm sorry, or at Black News Alert, or use the hashtag BossFM Town Hall. Let us know what you want to hear.
Yes, and with that being said, please remember, guys, to register to vote. Like we've been saying, you can see it at the top of the screen. There are 42 days left until election day. 42. That's 21 two times. We gotta do this, guys, for real.
For
42. 42, yes.
about just think about it was just June 19th. It was just Juneteenth. And here we are at September 22nd. So if you think 42 days, which is a month, is a change, won't sweep by.
It is. You're gonna blink and election day is gonna be here. So really take into consideration everything that we said today and make your decision and do what you gotta do.
Because once again, I am Charles Stark.
And I'm Kenya Miller.
And thank you all for tuning in tonight. And I better see you at the polls.
Y'all better vote. For real.
Night, y'all.